Hey, welcome back, guys. So we talked about how the page is supposed to look like. If we try to do a sample, look at our Figma. So the basic thing here, it has it's a class list, and then it has a list of students. So we're going to code in static students, like on students.blade.php. Let's say it shows that class list. Yeah. We're going to use an OL. OL is ordered lists, LI. LI says the first one is from God Martin. Next is Mba Peter. Next is Bella Kinsley. Next is Eno Marie and Mary Juliet. Let me use John Doe. Okay, so if we save this file and we try refreshing our students page, we see we have a list of students as it shows on our Figma design here. But then we have one thing we've not added yet, a details that links also a details page. Okay, so we're going to say so that will make it faster. Oops. Okay, so we have a detail. So this is I used to kind of a shortcut here in Visual Studio Code. You could type it back from scratch. So what I did was basically hold down my command key or my control key and then press continuously or continuously selects the items, but we can look at that later. So now we have an href that links us to a details page. We know that our details page is supposed to look like so. It's supposed to be like students and a particular ID. Now, if we look at our code, our web.php, we already have a statically linked ID here, right? And it's on the students. The route name is student details. The first thing is we're going to put this route name there. We're going to say, as usual, route name. Okay, sorry, student details, right? So if we save the student details for this particular student from Martin, we come back to our browser and we refresh it. If I hover here, you see that we have it students 3. But then if we do the same thing, let me just do the same thing for every other item or every other href to make it fast. So if we refresh this, notice one thing, each item which I hover, no matter the student ID, the ID on the URL is the same. So all of them are going to student ID number 3. All of them are going to student ID number 3, which that's not what we want to achieve in this. We want that when we hover here, it should be showing us students, it should go to students 1, not 3. But then we have not defined student 1. We have defined only student 3. Now, what do we think? Do we think we have to come and define students 3, students 1, students 2? But that's pretty strenuous for us to do. And just imagine you have 1,000,000 students. It means you have to define 1,000,000 routes only for those students, right? So what Laravel gives us is the ability to use route parameters, and we can change this 3 to a parameter. Let me close this. Thank you. We can change this 3 to a parameter by simply doing a curly brace and saying ID. So basically, we're saying that this students is this is a matching link. You say it's okay, students and a particular parameter which is called ID. So it could be any value, right? So if we come back to our students here, how do we tell our controller that it should send in this using the route? So basically, we do it with a second parameter in the route, which is an array. The route takes the second parameter, which is an array. Now, the array is what is the content I want to pass? I want to pass in ID, right? I want to pass in ID. What is the value of the ID? It is 1. So basically, I'm telling Laravel that I want you to invoke the student details route. Is it defined? Yes, it is defined, student details. Now, but I just don't want you to invoke that route alone. I want you to invoke that route and then change the parameter of ID to 1. So at that point now, it will be showing you students. It will be showing you something like this: students, not instead of this ID. So this ID is replacing this, right? So this ID is replacing this. So and the ID there says it is 1, right? So we're going to try this on the browser, and we refresh. If we refresh this here. So by the time we hover here, we see that we have something. Oh, since we didn't save. Oh, sorry, that's my bad. Okay, we refresh this. Okay, it tells us a problem. Missing required parameter for route student details. URI students ID on this view. So it's telling us that there's a parameter that is missing. This ID is missing when we're defining a particular route. Let me show you what I'm talking about here, or what Laravel is talking about here. Remember, when we've passed in a parameter only for our first details. So if we comment out these guys, right, and we refresh the page, it should work seamlessly. So if you look at the parameter down, it shows you students of at ID 1. So we can implement the same thing by uncommenting this and adding our ID of 2, right? We can quickly do that by copying this code. Yeah, no, this of 2, sorry. Oops. So we're going to say this is ID 3, ID 4, and ID 5. So if we save this and we try it on our browser, great. And if we hover here, it says students 1, students 2, students 3, students 4, students 5. So at this point, we've successfully been able to determine or pass in a parameter into our route. So we've put in a route name that takes an ID parameter, and then we represent it by a curly brace ID. Remember, it's not double curly brace ID, it's single curly brace ID, right? Because this is not Blade. This is simply inside a Laravel controller. If it were Blade, you will use double curly brace. So on the next episode, we're going to look at how to pass these route parameters to the controller, and subsequently from the controller to the view. Just to check that it's working, if we click here, yes, it's working. We click here, yes, it's working. We click here, yes, it's working. But then it's showing us the same content. In the next series, we are going to look at how we can receive this parameter at the level of the controller and pass it also to the view. Stay tuned.